Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, and boy oh boy oh boy do we have a good one for you today. Today's video starring the incredibly appropriately named Don't Let Me Win here, in the Soviet Tier 9 battleship, the Sovietsky Soyuz, in a Tier 9 ranked battle in domination mode here on the Trap map. Now it's ranked, so there are only 6 players on each team. So there's a limited amount of actual damage farming that's possible here because you only have half the regular number of players present. And yet... yeah. Challenge accepted. Sorry, I know I'm laughing, but I know what's coming. Right, anyway. So... note the Azure up ahead, or I don't even know how you pronounce the name of that thing, the German cruiser slash battleship wannabe thing. Now, note that there is a Paolo Emilio, the Italian premium Tier 9 destroyer, on the enemy team. Don't Let Me Win has noticed that there's a Paolo Emilio, more famously known as the Paolo Emiliolo, or the YOLO Emilio, on the enemy team, and he's busy typing some very good advice in chat, because he knows exactly what those things can do. And if you don't know what those things can do, let me just give you a quick refresher. They've got incredibly short-range torpedoes and guns that fire about once a week but hit hard. But they also have a high-speed smokescreen. And they are very, very fast. So if you see a smokescreen charging towards you at 40 knots, you're about to die to torpedoes. Do something about it. And that is basically exactly what Don't Let Me Win has just warned the team in chat, because he knows what those things can do, and there is one on the enemy team. There's his advice in chat. Actually, you may have just missed it. He said, don't let the YOLO Emilio YOLO you. Watch out for smokescreens. And that is great advice, which of course nobody is paying the slightest bit of attention to. And in fact, the YOLO Emilio on the enemy team in this case is so confident he's not even going to use his smokescreen. Honestly, he doesn't really need to. I mean, I said beware of smokescreens charging you down at 40 knots. That's actually not accurate, because it can do 50 knots with its engine boost running. And then it'll pump 12 torpedoes into you, which only have a 6-kilometer range, but when you're doing 50 knots, it doesn't take long. You know, you don't have to expose yourself to an awful lot of fire to get to within 6 kilometers or less. And sure, you're going to get shot at, but only for a few seconds. Because you're doing 50 knots and you've got 12 torpedoes. Well, that's all great advice, Jingles, but how do you know that you're being targeted by a YOLO Emilio? Well, somebody's flipping Charlie, and it's not the Neptune. Oh, there he is. Watch this. Oh, now the Azure's running his hydro. Fat lot of good that's going to do him. Here he comes. Here come the torpedoes. Look at the Azure turning to ensure that all of the torpedoes hit. He warned him. He did warn him. And complete waste of time. So, first kill to the YOLO Emilio. And sure, he has taken some damage, but there goes the smoke, allowing him to get away just about scot-free, and unfortunately, the smoke is also providing cover for the Neptune, which is a shame because battleships do love shooting at Neptunes. They are made out of citadels after all. So, the YOLO Emilio got the first kill, made it away scot-free. Oh, and there's a choice of targets here. Unfortunately, Don't Let Me Win does dither a bit, trying to pick between targets, obviously the Neptune being the juicier target, but he's also made it into cover now. The Sovietsky Soyuz, however, since it's a battleship, it's not going to stay undetected. Don't Let Me Win gets some shots out, does some damage, but then takes some damage in return. Meanwhile, the YOLO Emilio's popped up again. He's still cruising along at supersonic speeds, and he's spotted himself an Alaska. And that Alaska is probably sweating bullets right now. As well he should. Don't Let Me Win does not have line of sight to the YOLO Emilio, and with nothing better to do than continue shooting at the enemy Sovietsky Soyuz, that is exactly what he's doing. And again, you know, not huge amounts of damage, but it's Well, it's Sovietsky Soyuz against Sovietsky Soyuz, and they're both reasonably angled, so they're not doing huge amounts of damage to each other. The Yolo Emilio, however, has an Alaska and a Neustrashimi charging him down, but he's a Yolo Emilio, and so he just doesn't give a shit. And he's got the Alaska. Although he's not going to get away with it, but hell, he's already earned his place on the team by scoring the first 2 kills, and the friendly Neustrashimi takes him down. Don't Let Me Win nearly, as he's trying to turn around and get back into the fight, and he's given a pretty much flat broadside to the enemy Sovietsky Soyuz, and he could have taken a lot more damage there. Enemy ship caught him perfectly in the turn, but he did get away with it. And now he's got some backup against the enemy battleship in the shape of the North Carolina, who's just rounded the island quite safely now that the Yolo Emilio has been taken care of. Although that Neptune is still lurking. So Don't Let Me Win is keeping his eye on the Neptune. I mean, if he gets the opportunity, he is definitely going to shoot that thing, because a single salvo from a battleship firing armor-piercing shells, armed with 16-inch guns, can delete, if it hits a couple of citadels, and it usually will, a Neptune in basically one go. The Neptune, however, is probably well aware of this. If he's played more than one game in that ship, he will know just how fragile it is. So he's being a bit cagey for now. Which basically means that both Don't Let Me Win and the North Carolina can focus on the Sovietsky Soyuz. The problem here is that they're both basically shooting at the Sovietsky Soyuz from the same angle, so there's no opportunity to exploit any crossfires here, but they do have double the firepower. The other problem is that the Sovietsky Soyuz is a lot tougher than the North Carolina, and the North Carolina isn't really doing anything wrong here. I mean, it looks like he was starting to turn away in an attempt to get into cover, so he's not going to get farmed down by the Neptune instead, but then he realises he will be punished heavily if he exposes that amount of broadside, and was lucky not to get Citadel there. He did take a lot of chunk damage, so he turns back in. And neither of these two ships are really showing flat broadsides to each other, until about now at least. Unfortunately, with the position that the North Carolina's in now, the Neptune is also able to start chipping away at his health. And while the Neptune definitely does not have battleship caliber guns, it does have a lot of guns that fire very, very quickly. And so what was a very unfair fight for the enemy Sovietsky Soyuz turned into a very fair fight. And at this point, with only 2 ships left alive on Don't Let Me Win's team, and you can see him going for it, the enemy Sovietsky Soyuz is going for the ram, which is absolutely the right thing to do. If you miss the ram, however, you're given a flat broadside at a range of nothing. And that's what happens. So, it was 2 against 5, it's now 2 against 4. He is now being farmed by the Neptune, of course, and all of his guns are pointing the wrong way. As he's swinging the ship around to bring the guns to bear on the Neptune, he is also in the process of flipping Capture Point Charlie. Although the enemy Prince Ruprecht and probably the Buffalo down at the south are in the process of flipping back Capture Point Alpha while focusing down the last surviving other ship on the team, the Georgia. It's at this point where that Neptune starts getting uncommonly lucky. I can't remember the actual thickness of the Neptune's bows. I mean, usually tier 9 and 10 cruisers have anything between 25 to 27mm of bow plating, which is only really a factor if the battleship shooting at you are armed with 15-inch guns. 16-inch or higher armor piercing, it doesn't matter. It will overmatch, slice right through that bow plating as if it wasn't even there, and potentially citadel you from the front. But I'm pretty sure the Neptune, like most of the British light cruisers, only has 16mm, so why this guy isn't being citadeled, I have no idea. And he's getting so cocky now, he's probably turning to get the torpedoes away, because the Neptune does, of course, have torpedoes. If I try to do this in my Neptune, I die instantly, but somehow this guy's getting away with it. And he's so focused on getting this torpedo launch off that he's run aground. Finally, however, he starts getting what he deserves. And yet, still didn't get deleted, and Don't Let Me Win has to expend 3 shots from the rear turrets to finally put this guy down. And of course, in the time that it took him to put the Neptune down, the Georgia sank, and he is now the last ship left alive on his team, and was alone against 4 enemies. And here comes the Prince Ruprecht and the Alabama. Nice flat broadside you've got there, Mr. Prince Ruprecht. Would be a real shame if you would have come around a corner showing a flat broadside like that in an effort to try to get your torpedoes away. Of course, Don't Let Me Win did not get away scot-free there. I think initially he was just trying to get the island between himself and the Prinz Ruprecht's torpedo launchers, but then realised he was given just as much flat broadside to the Prinz Ruprecht as the Prinz Ruprecht was given to him, so he turned away. He's going to take his chances with the torpedoes, but he should be okay. The Prinz Ruprecht didn't learn his lesson the first 2 times. And there's kill number 3. However, I mean, Don't Let Me Win is on less than 10,000 health now, although he does have a heal going. And he's on fire. The good thing, however, about the Russian battleships is that while they do have limited charges on their damage control consumable, which nobody else has, they do have a very, very short cooldown. However, the fire's about to burn out, and he is getting spammed with HE by the Buffalo, so this is not really the time to use the charge of damage control. It's also not really the time to be showing flat broadside in a Buffalo to a battleship with 16-inch armor-piercing shells, because that happens. Don't know why that took so long to happen to the Neptune, and it's instant on the Buffalo, but, you know, what can I say? World of Warships. Has the Buffalo learned his lesson? He is starting to nose in, but the Buffalo appears to have forgotten something. These are 16-inch armor-piercing shells, so unless you have 30mm of bow plating, it's going to slice right through it. And there's kill number 4, and that just leaves the enemy Alabama, presumably with a banjo on his knee. And the Alabama does have a nearly 25,000 health advantage, and Don't Let Me Win's heal is on cooldown. But the Alabama is so desperate to get all 12 of its guns firing. I mean, really? He only needed to do 4,000 damage. He didn't need all 12 guns, but, well, you know, what can we say? And they're in chat, Abnormal Reflex. This fucking game, that's the Paolo Emilio captain on the enemy team. Yep, I know. You gave your team 2 great kills right at the start of the match, and they threw it away. So, yeah, that one has to suck for the captain of the enemy, Paolo Emilio, but you do have to hand it to Don't Let Me Win. I mean, he warned them. His name is Don't Let Me Win. Aside from the fact that he managed to get a Kraken Unleashed, that's 5 kills in a match where there were only 6 players on the enemy team to begin with. I did a quick bit of back-of-the-napkin maths, and the enemy team between them had a grand total of about 332,000 health, which means that not only did Don't Let Me Win sink 83% of the enemy team, he was also responsible for shaving off not far short of 70% of the entire health of the enemy team, not taking into account any heals that were used. Either way, I'm pretty sure we can all agree, he carried the shit out of that one. And his team were lucky to have him. And we were lucky that he sent this replay in and I watched it, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to enjoy it ourselves. And I hope you all did, because that is it for today. Congratulations, extremely well done to Don't Let Me Win. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.